Hello and welcome to The Curator on Monocle Radio with me, Fernando Augusto Pacheco. Over the next 60 minutes, I'll be bringing some of the very best interviews and reports from the past week of coverage on Monocle Radio, with highlights from our studios here at Midori House and from around the world. This week, the CEO of Mandarin Oriental opens the doors into his luxury hotels.
We've been present for centuries. Travel has always been a desire of a human being to discover, to engage, to relate. And I don't see that it's coming soon to an end. And traveling is the most important activity of human beings.
Plus, we check in with the editor-in-chief of the WSJ magazine.
Even as we explore topics of luxury, lifestyle, culture, travel, we try to be as close to the kind of news cycle as possible and produce something that is really going to be at the center of the conversation.
All that and much more in the next hour, here on The Curator, with me, Fernando Augusto Pacheco. We begin this week's show with the latest installment of What We Learned. Here is Monocle's contributing editor, Andrew Muller.
There'll always be an England.
We learned this week startling amounts about the interior decoration colour scheme preferences of UK Home Secretary Yvette Cooper.
We actually have Union Jack bunting on our garden shed at the moment. I've got St George's flags, I've got St George's bunting, I've got the Yorkshire Rose bunting as well. I've got Union Jack's flags and tablecloths. We've got the lot.
We learned that this extremely normal and entirely plausible outburst was, apparently, going to be emblematic of the UK government's response to a widespread outbreak of social media-encouraged flag hoisting in one of the UK's 4 constituent nations.
In some parts of England, everywhere you look, there are St George's and Union Jack flags.
We learned further that the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, was equally determined to pretend that he enjoyed nothing more of an evening than sitting down with his family to watch the flag, perhaps with dinner on their laps.
I always sit in front of a Union Jack. I've been doing it for years and it attracted a lot of comment when I started doing it. And in our flat, which is upstairs from here, as you know, we've got the St George's flag in our flat.
We learned, however, upon researching and contemplating the matter further, that there was far more going on here than can really be adequately conveyed in what is essentially a whimsical news review.
Is there by any chance a recent foreign desk explainer which might unpick the subtext of this brouhaha?
Glad you asked. Why, yes. Yes, there is. It's Explainer number 482, which went live earlier this week and which you can find on Monocle's website or wherever superior podcasts are downloaded.
Come on. Just get on with it.
Anyway, in the United States...
Oh, no.
Pace yourselves. In the United States, we learned something of the terrifying threat posed by radioactive shrimp. We learned this from second best ever US Senator John Kennedy, i.e. the no-relation incumbent elected by the people of Louisiana in 2016 and for some reason re-elected in 2022. Although, in fairness, only the second weirdest person called Kennedy at large in the present administration, he has not, to the best of our knowledge, ever sawn the head off a whale and strapped it to a roof rack. And we learned that Senator Kennedy had brought props, if arguably not his marbles.
This is a photograph of the alien from the movie Alien.
Do please go on.
This is what you could end up looking like if you eat some of the raw, frozen shrimp being sent to the United States by other countries.
Righto.
Now let me tell you what I'm talking about.
Please.
If you eat it, how could you end up looking like the alien in the Alien?
What's our next question?
Because the shrimp was radioactive. I kid you not.
We learned, however, and this may be a lesson specific to people composing wry, sidelong looks at the week's events, how annoying it is that the senator wasn't as alarmed about the possibility of radioactive cod, or perhaps haddock, as a punchline about fish and chips was right there, and we couldn't come up with anything nearly as satisfying pertaining to shrimp. But sticking with the subject of odd-looking toxic orange creatures which have emerged from murky depths to command the political centre stage, we learned more of the determination of US President Donald Trump to unleash the mighty military he commands upon enemies foreign and domestic, not merely upon Venezuelan boats which may or may not have been crammed to the gunwales with cocaine, but we'll never know now.
President Trump confirmed that the U.S. launched a strike in the southern Caribbean against a Venezuelan vessel that was allegedly carrying drugs.
But also women holding a press conference attempting to remind everyone of those files the president definitely isn't mentioned extensively and repeatedly in.
When it had already happened, this woman abused children.
We did learn when we looked into it, because we're good like that the US Air Force might not have been scrambled specifically to interrupt the victims of the president's good friend Jeffrey Epstein. It was apparently a tribute to a Polish F-16 pilot killed in a recent accident, staged in honour of Polish President Karol Nawrocki, who was visiting the White House at the time, which is, in fairness, quite a decent gesture. And the whole thing is what we can but hope will serve as a sobering reminder that not everything is what you might want it to look like. Can I get some general muttered agreement?
And
knitting seamlessly together this week's themes of arguably misplaced national pride, marauding marine creatures, things that fly, and annoying squawking, we learn something of the extraordinary celebrity endowed in this, the 21st century, by an ability to mimic a seagull.
Oh, I do like to be beside the seaside.
That was an actual seagull by way of establishing a benchmark. We learned that the English seaside settlement of Weston-super-Mare had drawn inspiration from the heroic endeavours in seagull mimicry of 11-year-old Cooper Wallace, current reigning European gull-screeching champion, having lifted the title in the Belgian town of Le Pan, which translates from the Belgian as the Pan, probably, in 2024 with this effort.
3, 2, 1.
And defended it earlier this year with this. If that doesn't make anyone sufficiently proud to spray paint a St. George's cross on their nearest roundabout, what will, etc. Once again, you see how cleverly these monologues are stitched together. Anyway, we learned that the arguably under-occupied burghers of Weston-super-Mare had instituted their own gull-screeching tournament and invited Cooper Wallace to choose the winner, as they clearly believe that one good turn deserves another.
Wow.
For Monocle Radio, I'm Andrew Moore.
Thank you to Monocle's contributing editor Andrew Muller there from Friday's edition of The Globalist. Next up, we turn to Wednesday's episode of The Briefing, where a row with France is heating up. Prime Minister François Bayrou, as if he didn't have enough problems at the moment, claims that Rome is engaging in fiscal dumping to attract French millionaires across the border. Italy's Giorgia Meloni rejects the allegations and insists it's her country's stability and lifestyle that are winning people over. To tell us who is right and who's wrong is our very own Europe editor-at-large, Ed Stoker, who joined Chris Chamak from Milan, which is at the epicenter of all the drama.
You can see both sides. Obviously, Italy is not the only country to do this, to have advantageous rules for high earners in order to attract them to move their tax residency to that country and therefore spend money in that economy, bring money into the economy. That's what Italy's doing. Portugal had a very advantageous rule from 2009 until 2024 when it was cancelled due to the spiralling house prices. taxes. Greece currently does have a rule as well, 7% on foreign earnings. So Italy's not the only one to do it. But obviously you understand François Bayrou, you said before, he's got a few problems. He has a vote of confidence on the 8th of September, and he's trying to introduce this massive austerity, 44 billion euros he's looking to save France. And so therefore, if a load of wealthy French people are then upping and leaving France, that's not good for him when he's hoping perhaps in the future that he might be able to tax those individuals to bring some money into France's coffers. Even the left has suggested this tax on wealthy French people who earn over 100 million euros of 2%. So you've got to look at it with all that in play, really, Chris.
You can look at all of that, but Ed, it is interesting listening to you there. I mean, when we talk about the stability thing, do you get the sense, though, that the tables have kind of turned here? I mean, Italy used to be the less stable one, as you say, it doesn't have the history, but these days maybe Meloni is right to point to her country being the stable one and France being the one that has budget problems and all the rest.
Well, look, Italy has always been, has had a very high debt in Europe and continues to do so. But obviously, France has been playing the catch-up game, hasn't it? Crippled by debt and having to look at its spending. So in that sense, yes. In terms of this model, we're talking about very high-worth individuals. Just to give listeners an explanation, because we haven't yet. Italy has an advantageous tax break, if you like, with a flat rate even tax on foreign earnings of 200,000 euros, and that's for up to 15 years. It's sometimes called the Ronaldo tax, because footballer Cristiano Ronaldo was the first to take advantage of this law when he was playing for Juventus Football Club. A bit of trivia for you there, Chris.
Well, that also takes us to Milan. Thank you for that trivia bit, because I do want to ask
Juventus is in Turin, but okay.
I'm losing my Italian knowledge.
It doesn't even want to be corrected on air.
I do.
You can't handle being corrected on air.
It's all right. I'll be corrected on air. It's okay. I'll take that, Ed. Fair point for me. But Milan is the one at the epicenter at the moment, whether it is Ronaldo who started all of this or not. Tell us about that. What is Milan benefiting from this? And also, I understand the locals are frankly a bit angry about it because they're priced out of everything.
Well, look, Italy is an attractive destination for some of the reasons we talked about this idea of Italian lifestyle, the Dolce Vita, reports, and this has been going on for a long time. These tax breaks have been since 2016, so it's been going for quite a long time. But obviously, with the UK changing its non-dom status rules, there's been Brits arriving here, French as well, like we said. So there has been some movement in that regard due to changes in other countries. But Milan is I guess, attractive from the sense that it still feels quite small. It's easy to get around. It's not a massive city. It's not a New York. It's not a London. It's not a Paris. You can be easily away for the weekend in just a few hours. You can be, in Liguria on the coast, sipping a nice wine. So, it's very easy to get out of. So from those lifestyle point of views, it is attractive. Like I said before, it is quite a small place. And it's, people tend to live quite centrally in quite a tight urban core. And so the demand is far outstripping the supply. There is a chronic lack of housing, despite new houses being built in some areas. And so we are seeing prices rise considerably. So, of course, that old chestnut of gentrification, people being priced out. And just, as someone who's recently, actually, today, in fact, Chris, bought a home in Italy, a flat, I might add.
Breaking news on Monocle Radio. Congratulations, Ed.
Thank you. It is hard. It is hard to find one, and it is costly. So those are some of the problems, with all cities that become more attractive. Those are some of the consequences that you do face.
Monocle's Europe editor-at-large, Ed Stalker, with Chris Chermak on Wednesday's briefing. You are listening to The Curator on Monocle Radio with me, Fernando Augusto Pacheco. To the entrepreneurs now. For more than 6 decades, Mandarin Oriental has been synonymous with luxury and exceptional hospitality. What began with the opening of its flagship hotel in Hong Kong in 1963 has grown into a portfolio that now spans 44 hotels, 12 residences, and 26 exclusive homes across 27 countries. The group has built a reputation for elegance, service, and innovation, all while remaining proudly anchored in its Asian heritage. Today, as Mandarin Oriental writes its next chapter, it is led by Group CEO Laurent Kleitman. Monocle Simon Bouvier sat down with Laurent in our Paris studio to discuss where the luxury hospitality industry stands today, Mandarin Oriental's recent purchase of the Lutetia in Paris, and the brand's starring role in Season 3 of The White Lotus.
Lutetia is not a hotel. It's part of the history. And this is what we really love, because being part of the history, I mean, there's so many things that you can tell, and then the people visit, not just for a good stay, but also to be part of a history, and history of Paris, of course, very much so. Lutetia means Paris in Latin, and but also history of the world. The 115 years of history of Lutetia, in fact, is a short for even hospitality. If you remember how it started. It started by Boucicaut, who was also the founder of the Bon Marché. And he built a hotel in front of the Bon Marché to host not only clients, but suppliers coming from province and clients visiting and shopping. Therefore, at the very beginning of the history of Lutetia was already experience, which is all what it is, hospitality and luxury about today. Creating an experience. You come to shop, but also you enjoy Paris lifestyle with great restaurant and great rooms and amenities and so on. So at the very beginning, that hotel has been thought as part of an experience. And this is really what hospitality is today. It's really moved forward to be creating moments. And therefore, Lutetia is that kind of property, unique in the world. You have a few of those around the world that really have created and are still creating the history of hospitality today and for the future.
And I think the kind of legacy aspect of this hotel is very interesting given the history of your own group. You know, your flagship hotels are the Oriental in Bangkok and the Mandarin in Hong Kong, which both have been around, I think, the Oriental for 150 years or something, right. and the Mandarin for 60 or decades at least. How does this kind of heritage fit into your business strategy when you're thinking about the group as a whole?
You're right. We need both. We need iconic, as we call them very often, grand dames, those hotels who've been always there, part of the landscape, part of the city fabric. Like in Bangkok, the Oriental, 150 years next year, stunning property, always kept up to date. And with a lot of innovation coming, we can even comment on that in a few minutes if you want. Same with the Mandarin in Hong Kong, 60 odd years at the time, the tallest building in the region, and has invented so many things that we take for granted today, like running water and bathtubs in all rooms. So interestingly, we have these grand dames that has been there, but they have been always at the beginning very inventive and innovative. And at the same time, we need to build new. We need to build what will be hospitality in the next decades. We are opening our second hotel in Dubai in just a few weeks. It's the most sustainably built high-rise tower in the Middle East, which is incredibly stimulating, seeing that we have those old properties around the world, at the Ritz in Madrid, the Lutetia in Paris, or the Oriental in Bangkok, and at the same time continue to innovate with new builds. And I believe this is what gives the impetus that build what a brand like Mandarin Oriental is capable of doing. And having those properties part of our portfolio is incredibly stimulating for our teams and for our clients.
I wanted to ask you a question about the HBO show The White Lotus, in which the Oriental is featured in the third season. To ask a broader question about kind of pop culture and how people perceive luxury hotels, do you think it's important for you in your position, setting the kind of strategic path for your group, to create these opportunities to attract attention from maybe an audience that doesn't know about the history of the Oriental, etc.? Or is it the case that it's more about those who know, and we need to kind of focus on our loyal customer base?
It's an interesting and complex topic that you're raising, which is the how do you communicate about a luxury hotel brand like Mandarin Oriental? Very happy to be featured in season 3 of White Lotus. It's a funny program. It's great storytelling. I don't believe this is the only way a brand should be, of course, marketed. Big brands, and especially big luxury brands, large luxury brands, have a role to play in pop culture. That I agree. We are cultural icons for a certain target audience, and by no means we are a mass brand. But for those who know us, we need to belong to the culture. But the way to belong to the culture may be different. The way we collaborate with artists, the way we display art in our properties, the way we design even properties with the collaboration with artists. For example, we have a project in Mexico on Riviera Maya in the south of Cancun that we are currently developing and building with the support of a Mexican artist, Bosco Sodi, who is a sculptor and who is helping us to integrate art in a meaningful and relevant manner across the property. I believe this is really a way to display purpose, which is another big trend of why people travel. People travel to connect to a culture, to connect with a community. Equally, when it comes to shows like White Lotus, I want to also say that we also curate our own assets ourselves. We recently launched a program called Inside the Dream, which is you can find it on platforms at the moment, which showing the coulisses and all the backstage of Mandarin Oriental across 3 properties. I'm saying we have now the power as a big luxury brand to create our own programs as well.
One final question I wanted to ask you after this tour d'horizon is, we're obviously in a geopolitical context that makes long-term decision-making for business a bit complicated because we don't know about tariffs. We don't know about so many things that we took for granted that are now up in the air. As a brand that has operated these properties that have been around for over a century, obviously you know how to navigate the kind of fluctuations in context. How much is what is going on right now weighing on your business decisions, and how do you balance the long term and the kind of short term?
We've been present for centuries, and some of our properties are more than 150 years old. Travel has always been a desire of a human being to discover, to engage, to relate. And I don't see that it's coming soon to an end. And to the contrary, I believe traveling is probably the most important activity of human beings. Discovering others, engaging with different culture, looking at different landscapes and discovering the world and the people around the world will not fade soon. I'm very optimistic about the growth of the hospitality industry because people want experiences. You want to discover things you haven't seen. And more importantly, you want time. And the real luxury is time with your loved ones, time with yourself to reconnect with yourself, time to discover something that is worth of discovery.
That was Laurent Kleitman, the CEO of Mandarin Oriental Hotel Group, with Monocle's Simone Bouvier. To my weekly program, The Stack Now. This week was a New York special. To mark the occasion, I was joined by Sarah Ball, editor-in-chief of the WSJ magazine, the cool publication from the Wall Street Journal. The last weekend, their new issue came out with a paper featuring the buzzy cover story with Sydney Sweeney. Sarah tells me more how the paper keeps investing in the title, what her autumn print schedule looks like for the magazines, and a few highlights of the issue. Here is Sarah.
Well, it's been a whirlwind 2.5 years that I've been in this role as the editor-in-chief of WSJ. But I first came to the magazine in 2018, actually, so 7 years ago. The magazine was looking for its inaugural digital director. It had never kind of expanded digitally and didn't have a kind of, robust digital presence. It was very alive across social, but not across the journal's site, which, as you know, because the Wall Street Journal is a huge global news organization, the site is a really powerful engine. And Christina O'Neill, the editor-in-chief at the time, and Matt Murray, the editor-in-chief of the paper at the time, both had kind of worked together with some forces on our business side to help establish a digital presence for the magazine. So I hopped over in 2018. I was working as the editorial director of GQ at Condé Nast. I'd been at Condé for close to 10 years at that point. And I came over to help them start a digital version and a digital complement to the magazine.
I was thinking about the importance of the magazine for the brand and for the newspaper. And a perfect example is the new issue, which comes out this weekend in the United States with Sydney Sweeney on the cover. Literally everyone was talking about, that cover story and, what she said on the article, even before the article came out. So that's quite an interesting one, right?
I think it is interesting for us because we are associated with a global news brand and news organization. So for us, steering into the news cycle is a huge win. I know when I talked to Emma, our editor, about this cover upcoming, and she was really excited, and we looked at the photographs together. And then a few weeks later, when the sort of news around Sydney started picking up, she and I were both like, oh my gosh, the cover is really going to be at the center of the conversation. So I think we steer into the news, even as we explore topics of luxury, lifestyle, culture, travel. We try to be as close to the kind of news cycle as possible and really produce something that not only our Wall Street Journal subscribers and readers, who we know love news and love to be at the center of the conversation, will enjoy and spend time with, but also to attract new readers to the journal and, to use our kind of vehicles of cultural journalism to attract the next generation of people who love success and stories of success.
And besides, the cultural aspect, I feel the Wall Street Journal in general, they are focusing as well on investing more in style in general, including, of course, the magazine, which also has those incredible photo shoots. And it does talk about the world of luxury, which is very important. And I think the readers of the paper are interested in those topics, right? How do you feel about that increasing investment of the Wall Street Journal when it comes to style?
It's such an interesting and good question, because I think when the journal's obviously, it goes beyond a legacy brand. It's, it has such rich history, and it started as a place that provided financial and business journalism to help you make investments in the sort of literal industrial revolution in the US, and kind of has grown and grown and grown, but was later than other peer newspapers or other media organizations to embrace weekend journalism, lifestyle journalism, style journalism, sort of what you do in your time outside of work. And you saw over the past 20 years, the journal has launched some amazing, delightful weekend type read sections. Mansion is one of my favorites that covers home and property. Off Duty, that covers how to live sort of a beautiful, luxurious, happy and content life. It's full of service journalism. The Magazine, which was launched a little over 15 years ago. So it's added these products in the last 25 years that speak to, how to kind of spend your wealth, if the main paper is speaking to how to accrue your wealth or how wealth is accrued or lost. But I think that the next dial turn for us that we particularly embraced in my team, and my team is not just producing the magazine, it's also producing style and entertainment coverage for the app and site and newspaper every day. So we do both. We have, daily responsibilities as well as the glossy issue 9 times a year. What we really believe is that there's not that bifurcation anymore in a reader's life where it's like 5 days a week I work and I care about success and work, and 2 days of the week I care about weekendy things and leaning back and leisure. We really feel that people want those sort of juicy reads or beautiful culture inspiring stories throughout the week, throughout the hours, in the evening, in the morning. We kind of believe it's a part of your daily news diet now in a way that maybe 25 years ago you would not. You'd have your kind of weekend section and you'd have your weekday and media diet. So I think for Emma's vision in terms of what the paper foregrounds every day of the week, and for our vision in terms of how we feed into that, we really feel like there's always an opportunity to entertain and delight and inform and serve as that kind of taste and inspiration for somebody every day, every hour, which is a lot of work for our team of journalists, but is really rewarding.
And to have some fun as well, because I want to mention as well the new issue, besides, of course, the story that everyone wants to read with Sydney Sweeney. I was kind of, surprised and happy to read the one about Becca Bloom, because, when I saw her on social media, it was very random. I was like, who is this girl? I want to know a bit more about it. And, a story from the WSJ magazine kind of, is super interesting, that specific story, actually.
I'm so glad you read it. I think, first of all, it's a dream for a journalist, a reporter's dream, to be the first person to profile a subject. And that was what the story was. This is the first time Becca has ever given an interview. She is relatively new to the TikTok scene, to the creator scene. You saw her go from sort of no following to overnight millions of followers just by living this really opulent and lavish lifestyle, but being very relatable and funny about her wealth and about she has a 9 to 5. She has a job. She is a Gen Z, employee with a corporate life, but then also has an incredibly fun and luxurious and inspiring social life, and life with, she's about to get married. She has an incredible closet. She both goes on trips to acquire beautiful handbags and jewelry, but then she also is on the real. So she's this real combination of very relatable, but very aspirational. And I think our reporter, Lane Florsheim, who did an incredible job with this story, spent a lot of time with Becca. That's such a luxury when you're covering someone who's not fortified by an enormous amount of barriers to access. Like, you can't ever get access to them. Becca was so giving with her time. She did a photo shoot with us in Paris. She wore lots of amazing clothes. And she was just really refreshing to talk to about how Gen Z sees wealth and why she has a following and what the kind of etiquette is around talking about success. And I think it's something a lot of our readers will read with interest. We do have very successful high net worth individuals reading the Wall Street Journal, but we also have people who want to be and who are aspirant. And I think it kind of serves both of those groups.
Thank you, Sarah. Sarah Ball there, editor-in-chief of the WSJ magazine. To find out more, you can go to wsj.com. Still to come here on The Curator, we talk shadow boxing in the Caribbean and celebrate the Quality of Life conference in Barcelona with a special global countdown. Stay tuned.
We're proud to support the craft of journalism. UBS brings you the latest news from around the world. Be part of an international network that brings together leading insights, research, and technology across 24 time zones and 12 key financial hubs, with you at the center of it all. UBS. Banking is our craft.
You are with The Curator, our weekly highlight show here on Monocle Radio, and I am Fernando Augusto Pacheco. To the foreign desk now, and the tensions between the United States and Venezuela. Joining Andrew Mueller is Oscar Guardiola Rivera, professor in international law and international affairs at Birkbeck College and the author of What If Latin America Ruled the World?
You might say that the history of the U.S. cannot be defined without the history of its interventions in the rest of the Western Hemisphere, and likewise, the history of Latin American countries cannot be told without taking into account the numerous interventions of the U.S. and other powers in the region.
So when the American bogeyman is summoned, whether in good faith or bad, what kind of events are usually drawn upon? Are we talking about the overthrow of Jacobo Arbenz in Guatemala in 1954, Salvador Allende in Chile in 1973, or are there others as well?
Well, those are very important. Chile on the 11th of September 1973 is particularly important. I mean, listeners might recall when Gabriel Garcia Marquez gave his speech to receive the Nobel Prize for Literature, he referenced the events in Chile. And in fact, he kind of told the entire history of Latin American literature around that particular event. But in point of fact, in the case of Venezuela, there are direct precedents. I mean, for the United States and Great Britain, the century before World War I was characterized by effective uses of naval power in support of national strategy. In 1863, for instance, the Royal Navy backed a British demand for reparations from Brazil. Britain joined Germany in 1902, 1903 to establish a naval blockade of Venezuela to coerce the latter into paying its debts. And the United States practiced gunboat diplomacy, let us call it for what it is, in Venezuelan waters as far back as 1899. In that occasion, the USS Wilmington sailed up the Orinoco River, transiting the region in which the US sought to expand trade.
I mean, are there more recent reasons for suspicion of the United States? Because there is a conventional wisdom that relations have settled as South America, Latin America has mostly moved beyond the period of military dictatorship, for all that much of that military dictatorship was enabled and encouraged by the United States. But are there still controversial issues around American meddling, perhaps to do with the war on drugs, etc.?
Indeed, Andrew, and that is the best place to start. The war on drugs policy, first declared by Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger in the late 1970s, has functioned in the Western Hemisphere in the same manner in which the so-called Nomus of the Earth policy associated with the work of Nazi jurist Carl Schmitt has worked, which is to say, as a justification to take over lands of otherwise sovereign countries. The knowledge in Mexico, in Colombia, in Ecuador, in Venezuela, and in Brazil that the war on drugs is really not a campaign to try and stop the flow of perilous narcotics, but really it has always given the U.S. A blank justification to intervene, as any viewer of the TV show Narcos might recall, is precisely what in more recent times raises suspicions across the board.
I mean, when we reflect on, I guess, interventions by the United States in the last several decades, is there a case to be made for any of them? I mean, we can proceed on the assumption that the United States was acting, as always, as most countries do, in its own interests, and that it may have done so with cynical motives. But was, for example, turfing Noriega out of Panama in 1989, for all that he was a former CIA asset, or turfing the generals out of Haiti in 1994, were these altogether bad things?
I mean, of course, the language of good and evil becomes complicated when it comes to politics. One can say that there is a moral case, or there was a moral case in the examples you used. Indeed, the example of General Noriega is fitting because Noriega was a strong man, a bad man, a bad hombre, as Donald Trump would say. But as you put it yourself, he was also a DEA and CIA asset. And that is what complicates our transposition of the moral argument into the political and the legal argument. And when it comes to the latter two, the political and the legal, it is the case that such interventions are unjustifiable, they are illegal. They did not achieve the aims they were supposed to achieve, both in the case of Noriega in Panama and in the case of Haiti. The flow of drugs never stopped. I mean, this can be generalized to the whole enterprise of the war on drugs. Right now, for instance, to refer back to the case of Panama, close to 80% of the drugs that flow from Latin America to the United States do so through the Pacific Ocean, not the Atlantic Ocean, which immediately, raises a bit of suspicion about the claims that Venezuela is the new bad guy. And that remains so to this day. So those particular interventions you refer to, A, never achieved the aims they were supposed to, and B, they destabilize the region. I mean, Haiti is a mess, not only because of what happened when the U.S. intervened, but that is certainly one important cause.
That was Oscar Guardiola Rivera, professor in international law and international affairs at Birkbeck College, with Andrew Muller on the Foreign Desk. Next up, we turn to Friday's edition of The Globalist. There are few designers who created a style which not only redefined dressing for a generation, but which also endured, no matter what the rest of fashion was doing. Such was the lasting achievement of Giorgio Armani, who has died aged 91, just a few weeks short of the 50th anniversary of the brand which bore his name. Armani's elegant deconstruction of the suit in the 80s would also change and inform the way the stylish lived, ate and decorated their homes. At Monocle's Quality of Life conference in Barcelona, our editorial director and chairman, Tyler Brulé, gave his reaction to the news.
This has been a gentleman and, of course, in contemporary terms, a brand that I've been following almost since the start of my editorial career, which goes back some time now. I think one of the remarkable things is we're in an era right now where we just see a revolving door of creative directors coming into companies and everything changes. The logo changes, the silhouette changes, there is a new approach to advertising, etc. I think one of the most remarkable things about Armani is that it's just the foundation was built around this man, and it was unswerving. At a time when there's been so much schizophrenia, you might buy into a brand, but then there's a change of creative director, and then it might not be something that you want to associate yourself with anymore. But here was a gentleman, and of course with related family members, who has just delivered season after season a consistency. I talk about silhouette, which is unique now, and I think that this is. We talk about a changing of the guard, but this is properly an end of an era, and it's not just because it's an end of an era of one of course, a designer who is really a cornerstone when we think about brand Italy and brand Italy from a design and fashion perspective, but also someone who really stuck to their guns and, of course, had a constituency of consumers. And those consumers are, of course, the retailers buying his collections, but, of course, the end consumer as well, who love the suit, who love the approach to dress, who were also his couture customers as well.
Monocle's editorial director and chairman, Tyler Brulé, there. We're nearing the end of the show, but before we go, we have time for one more highlight, to the Global Countdown. And we return to Monocle's annual Quality of Life conference. And to mark the occasion, I did some special digging into Catalonian music.
It is a quality of life themed show today, isn't it? What have you done for us? You've done some digging into Barcelona Catalonian culture.
It's another one of my specials because I decided to celebrate Catalan pop, and I realized a lot of those artists we already play here on Monocle Radio. But I have to say, it's been a moment of discovery for me as well. We have here in the office Marta. She's from Barcelona, and she actually gave me some advice as well.
You had an inside guide here to Catalan culture.
So here are 5 names from the world of Catalan pop music. They might be quite different from each other, but that doesn't matter. Here is just kind of so you have a feel for it and how important the region is. And of course, Barcelona has been the most important city of the region.
Were you surprised by the names and the fact that they came from Catalonia, or was there like a difference for you in terms of the style of music compared to the rest of Spain?
Half. I knew some of them were from Catalonia, but others were a bit of a surprise, including actually number 5, which I think is a very young singer. I think she's doing very well in the charts now. We're going to start on a very up-tempo beat here. This is Bad Gyal with Dame.
Pero tú rompiste, quitaste el seguro a la puerta. El baby que tengo en el sexo es especialista. Me lo entra, lo siento. A ese tamaño estoy lista. Dame al ritmo de la pista.
We're starting in a very sexy note. Just ended her Bikini Badness tour all across Spain. And, I was reading the description of the video clip of that song. I think, do not laugh, Chris. But
Try
it is.
Not to, but you're going to read something that will make me now, aren't you?
But it's so true. It is a minimalist house becoming the organism of sexual desire. And I think when you look at the video of that song, you understand that concept. I thought it was very creative.
I don't know where to go with that. I'm going to have to just look at the video, I suppose, to imagine how a minimalist house becomes, what was it? An organism of sexual
desire.
Design.
Very much
yes,
so.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I'm sure that is absolutely clear in the video.
It is time for gear change. And I love a good gear change. I don't like when everything sounds the same.
No, we like a change here.
We love a change.
So we're going a little softer now.
Softer and perhaps a bit more classic. I think this is the oldest and entry from the top 5. And you know what? I've been reading more about him. Of course, all Catalans know him. He's very known for his protest music against Franco's Spain. So this song, in fact, is from 1971. It will sound very breezy, but it is a protest song as well. João Manuel Serra, Mediterráneo.
A tus atardeceres rojos se acostumbraron mis ojos como el recodo al camino. Soy cantor, soy embustero, me gusta el juego y el vino, tengo alma de marinero. ¿Qué le voy a hacer si yo...
Breezy protest. I think that does actually capture it pretty well.
It gave me goosebumps. It's so good. And I was reading about João Manuel. So he collaborated even with other musicians on countries that were under dictatorship at the time, including my own country, Brazil. He spoke to musician Chico Buarque. What a fantastic guy. It's a legend, not only for Catalan pop, but for Spanish music in general.
And clearly beyond that as well.
Absolutely.
Where are we going for number 3? Have we moved on beyond the protests of the 70s?
It's no protest. It's just, it's original, it's cool, and we play the song here on Monocle Radio. It is Rigoberta Bandini with Caimán and number 3.
Como un caimán en Everglades, me aburro si no empiezo otra vez, como un cartel del Corte Inglés. Me gusta que te acerques a verme, dime si estoy guapa y si lo hago bien.
A little mention to Corte Inglés, of course, the department store. And Rigoberta Bandini, that's not her real name. That's the musical project of a Spanish singer, Paula Ribó. But I love her music. This song is from her latest album, Jesus Christa Superstar, with 22 tracks.
That is a large album. Fernando, you always, if memory serves, mention that Rigoberta Bandini would be that person who should have submitted her songs to Eurovision for a Spanish entry. Is that right?
And I think she would do well because, as you know, Chris, Spain doesn't do that well on Eurovision. And I think they should select Rigoberta Bandini. She did try, though. I think she was the runner-up at the Benidorm Music Festival where they select the entry. So she was almost there.
She was so close. They always try pretty hard. We were talking about this before, but somehow they don't succeed, although their songs are always pretty catchy. They're very good Eurovision fare.
It is very good, and could be Rigoberta or could be our number 2 as well, which is another favorite of mine. This is more...
Who was also part of Eurovision, I believe?
Yeah, I don't think she managed to...
No, maybe I'm wrong about that. Anyway,
but it's...
Moving swiftly on.
Moving swiftly on. It is Aitana, again, a great musician, and this song is actually about a failed relationship, but I think even failed relationships, they sound very good under lovely, lushy synths. Let's have a listen to Aitana's 6 de Febrero.
Porque todavía te quiero, yo te quiero, maldito me olvidaste de primero, tú que me prometiste mundo entero, ahora devuélveme mis 6 de febrero, porque vivo bailando para no llorar más.
These are all very different styles, I'll give you that. Sort of, this is the sort of happy sweet ballad sort of song.
Happy, but about a failed relationship. Do not forget that, Chris. And this song apparently could be about her breakup with another very famous singer, Sebastián Yatra. Not confirmed, but come on, we can speculate here a little bit.
I mean, if they're writing a breakup song, then yeah, it's fair enough.
But we are going to end this countdown with a very hot note, because this song for me screams Spanish summer, and she is the biggest name in Catalan music. Well, she's probably the most famous Catalan out there today. It's the wonderful Rosalía, which is an international global name, and this song is one of my favorites. It's called Despecha.
Mambo violento, el fin del problema, que fácil te lo voy a decir. ABC, 1, 2, 3. Mira que fácil te lo voy a decir. Que estamos tomando, mira, no está para ti. Mira que fácil te lo voy a decir. ABC, 1, 2, 3. Mira que fácil te lo voy a decir. Que estamos tomando, mira, yo ando despechada, a loca. Bajé con un flow nuevo acá, baby, hackear. Lo muevo de...
It's sweaty, it's raw, it's Good talent. I am a fan. And you know what? For all the fans of Rosalia I was reading before coming here to the studio, she is currently recording new music.
New music coming up from Rosalia. Did you know that she was from Barcelona before doing this?
That I knew. I was surprised about Aitana, gotta be honest, and Bad Gyal, but I think Rosalia, I knew that. The Global Countdown along with Chris Chermak on Thursday's edition of The Briefing. And that's all we've got time for this week's edition of The Curator. The show was produced by Tom Webb, edited by Jack Jewers, and presented by me, Fernando Augusto Pacheco. Join us again next week to hear some of the very best of the programs here on Monocle Radio. Thank you for listening.